Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 15 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. My guest today is narrator Crais. Welcome back to Audiobook Lovin, Connor.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good. Very, very busy, but that's a good problem to have.
Yes, it is, especially for the listeners too, so you won't complain.
I hope so. I'm hoping they're not getting sick of me.
Nah, I don't think the consensus is that at all, so I think you're good. For those that are new to the Audiobook Lovin family, Connor made his podcast debut last year here and became the voice of the Audiobook Lovin Series. The intro and the outro that occurs in June, and then recorded about 86 books between now and then, and survived an interview with Kaylee Loring. So yeah, a lot has happened in a year.
Yes, surviving Kaylee.
Yeah. I've included links to the previous posts for listeners to check in and catch up on, because we've discussed things like processes, accents, and routines in previous chats. Today, we're just basically just catching up, and you guys can catch up by listening to those episodes. So we're just catching up again. So with that said, for those who may not know you so much, why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been narrating, and how you became a narrator, just real quick.
So I've been doing voiceover for over a decade now. I haven't done the math in a while. And I was an actor. I've done some TV, and I did a lot of Shakespeare theater. And then Ava Lucas contacted me and was like, "Hey, I think you have a good voice for this." And I had no idea about romance. I had no idea the first time I was on your show. I have a much better idea now. I've learned a lot in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I started. I got involved in the romance world, and not too long after I did that podcast with you, it just exploded. I am booked wall to wall until September. And even then I have stuff in September and November and December.
Mm-hmm.
So managing all that and trying to make sure that I can still see my family and that I'm not taking on too much was a tough balance, but I think I'm really getting the hang of it, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a lot of books.
Yeah. And I've turned down a bunch. I mean, I feel very, very fortunate, but it was certainly a learning curve. Because the other thing is I've been doing voiceover for a long time, but to record long form narration on a regular basis, it's just a different thing to know how much audio I can reasonably do in a day, or reasonably accomplish in a week. And I have young kids and a wife. And so there's random things that happen on a day where my wife really needs my help. So then I got to kind of budget that in as well, because I want to be able to be here and help out. So trying to figure out that balance, certainly a good problem to have. I'm very, very appreciative, but a problem nonetheless, where I was like, I got to make sure that I'm not biting off more than I can chew.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a trick.
Yeah, I remember as soon as that episode published, I had people like, "Oh my God, who's that voice?" And I'm like, "Did you not listen to the intro?" It says Connor Crais. Because I guess I'm that sarcastic friend.
Yes, you are.
But yeah, a lot of people were like, "Hey, available." I'm like, shoot him an email, check it out. But the community as a whole, both listeners and authors, have really fallen for your narration style, but also you as an individual and your sense of humor, especially on Twitter. That's always fun.
Yeah. I try to have fun online.
Yeah. One of the things that was hilariously fun when we talked last year was, because you were relatively new at the time, we're talking about prepping a book and how it's important to know when an accent pops in and you've been in chapter 25, and all of a sudden, oh, that's right, I haven't done the accent for 25 chapters, and you were adamant that wouldn't happen to you. So now it's been a year. Has that happened at all yet, or no? Be honest.
There was a book, I won't mention the title, but they you have to balance the author and production company and what they request versus what you think is a good idea. I know this didn't happen to me, but I know another narrator who really, really wanted to do a British accent for this like sword and sorcery series. And they're like, no, just general American. And she just didn't feel that was right. But, they hire you, they pay the bills. So what they want is what they get. But that information doesn't necessarily get translated to the listener, who will, artistically, you think the listener will be like, this just doesn't fit right. So I was requested to do just neutral. And there was a mention of an accent in the book, and some people were like, "Hey, what's the deal with that?" And I maybe this was earlier on, so I didn't feel like I could maybe say as much. I was just like, "Yep, you got it. Whatever you want." And I think now it'd be like, "Hey, just for this, maybe." And I actually bring that up a lot more because it's actually come up twice after that. I learned a lesson from that. I think twice after that where the author was like, yeah, no accents. And I was like, well, you wrote like 4 or 5 times in your book about mentioning about like what this voice sounds like with an accent, and stressing that it's like, oh, that accent is so sexy or whatever. So I'm like, I feel like we should at the very least, like when they're emotional, that's a good midpoint, so that if the author doesn't want the whole book in that accent, which is fair because reading and listening can be very similar, except it's like, well, I don't actually want the whole book in that accent because it's just a different experience. So one way to get around that is that this person mostly speaks in a traditional American accent, except when they get really emotional, so turned on or angry or sad, then the accent can come out, and that way you can bridge both. So when the character talks about their accent, the listener's not like, well, that's weird, they haven't spoken in the accent at all. They'd be like, well, it comes out when they're emotional, but then the rest of the book can just be in that general American zone. So it kind of happened early, and I was like, I had to figure out how to negotiate that. And I feel like I have a better handle on that now.
I think sometimes gets past the production company or the authors to tell the production company to let you guys know, hey, there's an accent or not or whatever. But I think now everybody's a lot more open about having these conversations where the narrators can turn around and say, hey, notice this, and are we going to do that or not? So that's good that you're doing that.
Right. Well, that was the other thing I needed to learn, and hopefully I'm writing that line, and I always try and work on that in a book. But there can be acting in the book, and I enjoy the acting part very much, but you don't want too much, because it's not a screenplay, it's not a play, it's not a radio drama where it's just dialogue, because there's a lot of prose and a lot of things describing scenes, and if there's too much in every line, it would just be too much to listen to. So riding that line between having a point of view and being the character the whole time, but also being like, I climbed into the truck, I don't want to make a big moment of I climbed into the truck. Like I climbed into the truck and then we drove to the restaurant, and and maybe I have some of the element of like, I'm sitting next to the girl and I'm excited, but like, I'm just conveying that I'm getting into the truck and driving to the restaurant. I don't want to make that so important, every line so important and filled with emotion, because it would just be too much for a 6-hour book.
Yeah, for you to perform it that way, but also for the listener, because we're going, okay, what's so important about him being in the truck? What is he trying to tell us?
Exactly. And the really emotional parts wouldn't hit because everything is so important, then nothing's important. So
exactly. Well, see, it thought it would sneak in there by you one moment here and there. So
what's that?
Sorry. He said, I remember you were so like, oh, it's not gonna happen. I'm like, watch, it's not gonna be totally your fault per se. Yeah. But you're like, no. I'm like, yes, no. Okay. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
The other thing that you're talking about is now that you've had all this time, it's been a full year that you've been, a little bit over a year now, that you've been more engrossed in the romance genre. Is there anything that you've regret that's been going on or anything like that? Because I remember you saying that, like, oh, if you regret anything, you'll let me know.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Here's one regret. I recently am going to physical therapy because over the years, my neck and back, I just had this old lifting injury and I've been trying to manage it, but it really started affecting my ability to work in these long sessions in the booth. And my wife was finally like, just go. Like, it's literally how you make money. Just go. And I was like, okay. And it's already paying dividends. So I wish I had done that earlier. So I regret not taking care of that earlier. And I wonder if that would have changed some things as far as my ability to work. But, onward and upward and forward. That's how I function. So I don't try to live with a whole lot of regret.
The stuff that we learn on the job and the fact that you recognized that self-care is important.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, no, you do this, you do that. And then I'll hang on to it. I'll deal with it. And it's like, no, you need self-care.
Yeah.
Go to the doctor.
Well, this is not a job that you can do beat up and exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, like, it's just hard, like if there's tons of jobs out there that, you won't do your best work, but if you're, putting numbers in a spreadsheet, you might miss some numbers, but like, if you're tired and whatever, you can do it. There's times if I'm too tired or if my body's too beat up, I'm just not making the sound. Like, it's a physical impossibility to do my job if I'm not in decent shape. It's just not, I can't be like, I'm hungover, not that I haven't done, work hungover, but it's just like, you can't do that too often or you're not going to be able to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really, it's extra important in this job to make sure your body's, moving along.
Yeah. And taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can say, oh, I feel like I'm hungover right now. Is there a place in one of my books that I've been cast where the character is hungover and this will make sense?
It's true. I will say this. It is hilarious how much these characters drink and eat and still have six packs.
I know.
And I'm like, well, this is the fantasy element of the romance genre. One of the many fantasy elements where these guys are having burgers and beer and they have these beautiful six packs. And I'm like, that's not really how that works.
Yeah. Especially when you don't see them going to the gym either.
Yeah. Well, it's just, you have to, depending upon, I study fitness. I'm a pretty, in and out of being a dad. I used to be more fit when I was younger and not a father, but yeah, it's, the level of dedication you have to have, particularly in the kitchen, to maintain a six pack without being on something. There's a lot more dedication than these dudes who just wake up and relax with these women and drink and like have a good time. And it's like, just this beautiful. But I don't want to ruin it. I'm sorry if I'm ruining
the magic and the fantasy.
Yeah.
You mean that we don't get all those lovely, verbal affirmations from the guys in real life?
Yeah.
Or some of that other talk that we like during specific moments in our lives. Gee, I wonder why romance sells so much.
Yeah, right. Well, it's better when it's written out because, man, that that can go real wrong real fast.
Yeah, it's true. And there's a couple of TikToks just for fun that happen like that when they try and you're going, no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or there's been some where, because romance is, has been kind of growing and continue to be a lot less taboo than it has been. Some of the videos for fun are the husband trying to do some of these lines that the authors write that you guys perform. And we listen to it and we're going goo goo gaga over them. But then the guys try it and the wives are like, the fuck out of here.
Well, that's not very nice.
No.
You get an A for effort.
I know. And I think one I saw was, she was doing dishes and he tried something and then she just sprayed him with water. And I'm like, oh. Yeah. But now that you've also been here and more immersed in the community, has anything surprised you or as a good surprise about the romance and the audiobook community and the book community in general?
The level of engagement and how fun it's been with the fans. I didn't think I'd live a life where I had fans or that I engaged with them in this way. That was not a thing that I thought it would be in my future. Mm-hmm. But it's been fun, and it's been really, that stuff is always, I didn't know what it would be like because, mm-hmm. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that don't like what I do and or don't like me or how I interact online. That's just, you're never going to please everybody. So I'm shocked at how positive it's been mm-hmm. for the most part. It's like, there's been very little pushback or things where I'm like, oh, that's not very fun or nice. So that's been a really, really pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I know that we talked, part of that episode was about the fans and how we're narrator motivated and how the interaction, and you were like, yeah, that probably won't happen to me. And I'm like, what?
Yep. I had no idea.
No, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's been a great thing.
Yeah.
That young man had no idea though.
No.
young man. He did not know.
No, right? Ugh, things you learn.
Yeah.
We thought it would be fun to get questions from listeners, and we reached out to your official fan group, Connor's Cuties, and asked them to submit questions for you. They were really excited about the opportunity, and they did not disappoint. So we'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but I'm sure there'll be opportunities, if anything that we missed and we didn't get a chance to do today, that we'll do it at another time. So, because, time runs out. Good. Yeah. Yes. And that's the other thing that changed. You now have an official fan group.
Yeah. Another very pleasant surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that right now we're like 2 people shy for 300 people. So
cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So the first question comes from Christy Reitz. Now that you're no longer a newbie to audiobooks, what have you learned about yourself since you started?
Learned about myself. I guess the way to answer that is, it's very, the thing with audiobooks is it challenges your endurance. I've done commercial stuff, and that's about very fine-grained precision when you're doing like 15 seconds on a commercial. You do it a bunch of different times, but it's all about the very, very like slight gradations on a word or the volume or the tone or whatever. Whereas these are, thousands and thousands and thousands of words. I think you said there are 86 books out now, mm-hmm. and I'm still doing more. I mean, multiply that by an average of 40,000 words. I mean, we're talking about like I'm reaching millions of words. Mm-hmm. And it's like the ability to sustain that and make sure that I'm consistently hitting a certain level that I feel comfortable hitting. And I'm like, this is good work. And building that into my life with my family, who I want to be around and spend time with, and balancing all that and talking to fans and prioritizing and being able to reach that level has been a learning process for me. And I hope I've been hitting it, and that I continue to hit it, and that I get better at it as things go on. that I'm able to produce the work that I want to produce at the level I want to produce it, while also living this full life with, my family and friends. So that's really, I feel, the challenge, because on the flip side, the work itself, I'm still learning about that, but I felt very good about figuring that out, that my years of being an actor, there's some quotes about like success, that it's like the overnight success is actually like built years prior. That it's like it's not that I just picked up audiobooks out of nowhere. It's like I had been building all sorts of skills that were good for this thing that I didn't even know. I didn't know this thing, but that worked well for it. So when I'm in a book, like that's home base. I feel good about that. It's like these things I know, the acting and the audio, but it's building everything else in my life that's been a lot of the work too.
She also asked, with the experience under your belts, is there any new or old accents, tropes, or types of books you want to narrate again? Maybe has to
I mean, I seem to have a pretty nice rotation. It seems to go from sports, mafia guys, gangsters, billionaires, motorcycle dudes. It seems to be my main rotation. And Irish has come up a few times, and I'm sure there'll be other accents that come up. Yeah. So I saw that question, and I was like, the answer is no, because it'll come around. Like, I'll just have to wait a couple months, and there'll be another billionaire. There'll be another, which I like doing. So I can't think of a book that I did where I'm like, man, I haven't seen that. I wish I could go back to that, because I feel like, I'll get to be that dude again.
That rotation you're talking about, no firefighters or maybe undercover cops. I think you did something like that already.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So firefighter I haven't done in a long time. Yeah. But so that'd be cool to do.
Yeah. I'm sure an author there is going, "Ooh, I have a book." Yeah, just as long as you book them now for sometime late this year or early next year, you're fine.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Angela Sipperly, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, and I apologize if I'm not, says, money, family, and work obligations aside, if you could time travel and spend 1 week in either the past or the future, where would you go and why?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. I mean, I'd have to go to some place where if I time travel, they don't think I'm a witch and kill me for time traveling, which cuts out a lot of the earth for a long time. Yeah, I guess I'd have to find out if I like blend in, if I'm able to blend in. I've been really into studying the Renaissance painters recently. But I don't speak Italian. So unless I have a translator, that wouldn't really do very much for me. I guess I go to the future. I want to see, there's a lot of pessimism right now, even though there's a lot of good. And so I guess I'd be curious to see if actually things might work out. That'd be good to know.
That's true. Overthinking, but good.
What's that?
Is that you get into the questions, you're like, okay, we're going to process this. We're going to do this. If we do this.
That's what I do.
I know. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm not the only one. Leanne Shorts asks, if you could portray any of the children from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, now grown up and finding love, who would you choose?
The chubby German kid is Gunther. Is that right?
I think so.
That dude. And he's grown up in Germany. He's like ripped now, because he, like, his health was at risk, and chocolate got him into trouble. So he's like anti-sweet, and he falls in love with a girl, but she works at like a tubing factory or something, which is his greatest fear, because he get trapped in a tube when he got like launched out of the chocolate factory. So I'd be that guy. And that would be the story. And he has to overcome his fear of tubes.
To be with her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good. Okay. She also asks, if you had to work a professional sports team as a professional sports team mascot for 1 month, which one would it be?
I mean, that's easy. My favorite team's the Patriots. So if I could be Pat Patriot, I'm all for that. Or one of the Musketeer dudes. That would be cool to fire off the muskets after a touchdown.
Okay. But they do all that dancing sometimes still, right? I know college ones, the mascots do more of that. Do the pros do it
I don't
too?
know how much dancing Pat does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not much of a sports girl over here, so hence the question.
Right.
Val Wall has a very interesting question for you, if you're ready. She asks, why is there fuzz on a tennis ball? Please explain this to me.
So I looked this up because I wanted to know. It is for the game because you can control the ball better and it slows it down. If the ball was smooth, you wouldn't be able to control it, nor would the court make as much difference. So it's a different game if that ball is smooth. The way tennis is played by both men and women, part of that is due to the speed and the control on the ball because of the fuzz, which is why apparently tennis players, you'll see them handling the balls. I can say that to a romance crowd. Handling the balls and seeing which ones they like to that have the right feel for what they want to do for the game.
Yeah, it's funny how you also said that as if you did not know exactly what you were doing. That just says and shows how engrossed you are in the community.
I know exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. I mean, it's every day. So
Exactly. Sarah McQueen asks, if you could have any animal as a pet, what would it be?
I was trying to think, like, is this like I can have an exotic, like a tiger?
Yeah, any pet, any animal as a pet.
I mean, here's the issue. I have kids, I have a mortgage, I have a job, I have a dog, and that's as much responsibility. Like if I was if you were asking me at like 23, maybe I'd be like, oh yeah, a liger or whatever. But it's like, I know, like, you got to clean crap, you got to buy food, you got to take him to the vet. And it's like, I don't want that. I don't want that more responsibility, a big tiger. So I'll stick to dogs. Dogs are all good by me.
Okay. But if none of that existed, or you had someone taking care of it for you, and you can just have the fun part of having any animal. I mean,
there is no bigger power move than like inviting people over. It's like, this is my tiger. So yeah, for sure.
Tiger, it's got it.
Yeah. A white tiger. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's definitely, those are very pretty.
Yeah.
Wendy Laudermilk asks, how comfortable have you gotten with the steamy scenes?
I'd say pretty comfortable. Also the nice thing is, because I've been so busy, if there's something that I'm not really interested in, I just don't do it. Which is beneficial to everybody, because why would the author or producer want to hire a narrator who wouldn't do it justice because they're uncomfortable with it? So, I mean, the stuff that I do, it can get pretty hot and heavy, but for the most part, it's not unenjoyable. So, there was I don't know if I told this story the last time I was on. Maybe I don't think it had come up yet. But an author offered me, this was fairly early on, a book in the Omegaverse. Do you know the Omegaverse?
Yeah. We did talk about that. And I think it was your daughter's name or something.
Yeah. And I was like, and on top of that, I mean, it was also, it was non-consensual, which I think that's where it belongs. It belongs in books. Like, that should be a safe place to do all sorts of crazy stuff. It's more about what I feel like doing with my day. And so if I'm not going to enjoy it, then I'm thankfully in a place where I don't have to do it. And there's plenty of talented people out there who either hopefully enjoy it or would do a better job. So that's, that's where that's at.
Okay. She also asked, who have you not had a chance to work with that you'd still like to?
I don't know. I'm making the rounds. I recently worked with Erin Mallon. She was somebody who I wanted to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Erin Mallon was on my list for a long time. And she's crossed off now. So
cool. And he's got to keep adding more people to that list.
yeah, that's it. I'm fortunate enough to every few months there's a new person. So it's like I gotta. The other thing is I haven't been able to meet any of these people. Like there's audiobook conferences too where you meet these other narrators, and that hasn't happened in a while. So the other thing is I haven't gotten to know new people either. So
yeah, those are going to be popping up again, especially in 2022. So I'll keep you posted on which ones are going around that the narrators are going to be in attendance, and that way you can pop in and say hi.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because that's always the question that the listeners are like, hey, do the narrators go? I'm like, some do, some don't. All depends, on the area and the cost, because those things are not cheap. But yeah,
right. And having young kids, there's not a whole lot of travel at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That'll open up as they get older too.
Yeah, then you get to bring them along. That's always a fun conversation. Yeah, some people do like daddy. Don't worry, it's okay.
My kids like me.
Okay. Yeah, they'll go in stages. Remember that yours are small. You'll get
like
to them
right now.
Like okay. Right
Yeah.
It goes through stages where they're going to despise. They still love you, but they're just not going to like you very much in certain things. So.
I do have a narrator for you that I haven't worked with that we've been trying to do it. Megan Kelly. I have not gotten to work with her. She is a friend of mine, and we just hasn't synced up yet.
Well, the good thing is about the community is it's relatively a small world when it comes down to the narrators and the rotations there, and authors also ask the listeners for suggestions. And so people are like, yeah, you should put this one with that one. Connor hasn't worked with this person. You should put them together. And so always an opportunity for their options.
Yeah.
Diane Hefner asks, what was the hardest scene in a book that you've had to do so far?
Strangely, it happened recently. The one I'm working on right now. I never know when I'm not going to say the title. Because one, there's a little bit of a spoiler alert. But on top of that, I never know when I can actually talk about a book or not. But this one is just, I know some people were requesting just Connor. This is a just Connor book. But it's very, very well written. But it's very, very sad. And there's a scene where the son dies, his young son. And it's been pretty tough narrating that. I come up a lot, upstairs a lot to hug my son during those parts. It's pretty, my wife and I talk about that. All those movies where the kid is lost, or the kid is gone, or any of that stuff, you just watch it differently when you actually have a kid. It's just, it's not the same experience. So it's been tough emotionally doing that one.
Okay. Yeah, those are always difficult. Kids and dogs. Those are the two. They're like, you don't fuck with. And some authors are like, okay. Yeah. So that's a
dog is a little different, because a dog, part of being a pet owner is like, you kind of sign up for like, I'm going to usher them into the end of this. Yeah. That's part of your job as a pet owner, is like, when they've had enough, you help them out. It's part of the deal. Is where it's hopefully with a child that never happens.
Correct. Yeah.
So
that is true.
But but you don't kill dogs in movies or books.
That's when really it comes down
business.
to people. Readers don't like that, and movie goes like, no, do not mess with the kids and the dogs, okay, or the pets. So all have our limits. Was there ever a language or an accent you were having a hard time doing during any of the books?
I don't think so. I haven't done that many accents in books. I will say there was I did one of the mafia romances. She wanted all the Italian spoken in Italian, and it just takes to move from American and then in the middle of the sentence to hit it exactly with Italian and then move back to standard American. That can be tough. That's a technical challenge. Obviously you hear native speakers do that, and it's very easy for them because they're used to both. But if I'm not a native Italian speaker, so like it takes effort for me to make that accent, but it's supposed to sound easy in the sentence. I didn't want it to sound like there was an SNL sketch with Jimmy Smits, I think it was. And they were like, would you like some enchilada? Like they would hit all the Mexican foods, like, and he was in the sketch. He's like, you don't have to say it like that. So they were like overdoing it to make it sound really Spanish. And I didn't want it to sound like that, but she really wanted the Italian. So that was a difficult one, which hopefully I accomplished.
Also, that's part of the magic that performing these books cause for you guys as the narrator. You're thinking about all these options and processes and making sure it's not too much, and we get the finished product where everything's done and we just enjoy.
Right. Yeah. It was that podcast we did with Mackenzie and Kaylee. I talked about that. It's like, because they asked you, like, do you enjoy and it's like, it's just not the same thing. It's cooking the meal. It's not eating it.
Yeah.
There's tons of enjoyment there, but it's a completely different experience. Not the same thing. Like, I do enjoy figuring that out. Like I enjoy my job, but it's not, I'm sitting there receiving this thing. I am creating it. And there's tons of joy and fun there, but it is a completely different experience. So I am not experiencing these books in the same way.
Which is also great why to have that relationship with the listeners where they can tell you like, oh my God, this was so good, or you did such a great job.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's interesting to hear what hits, what people engage with. Yeah, that is cool. Because I never know, like, I'm just trying to do the work. And, at a certain point, you just have to release it into the world, and how people take it. So
speaking of Kaylee, Loring, she dropped in a couple of questions here. She says, I seem to recall you saying in an interview from a year ago that you wanted to be a cartoon when you grew up, and that was very intriguing. What cartoon did you like as a kid? And if you had to grow up to be a cartoon, what would that cartoon character look and sound like?
So my probably all-time favorite cartoon is Batman, the animated series. That was my favorite. Ninja Turtles, X-Men. I posted Reboot. Lacey was asking about, I saw on Twitter, was asking about Saturday morning cartoons. I had a whole, back in the day, like kids these days have it so easy now. They can just stream whatever they want. But I had a whole, I woke up and I would wake up early. Man, it's so funny. Kids can sleep in however they want, and they wake up early, and parents want to sleep in, but they have to wake up early for life. It's just one of the universe's great tricks on us. But I would wake up so early on Saturday, and I would start with Captain Bob, who is the local drawing guy on, I think it was PBS. And he would do drawings, and I would do drawings in the morning with Captain Bob. And then from there, I would have a whole schedule laid out. And I remember I wanted to watch Pirates of Darkwater, but it was up against another show. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Pirates of Darkwater, I will never see you because you are up against a show, that I love. I can't remember what that was. Maybe it was Reboot. I don't remember. But so the second part of that question, I assumed, I don't know what my cartoon would look like, because I assumed it was a lot like acting, where you would go to a cartoon college and then you could transform into whatever they needed for the show. That was what I thought when I was like 4, was that it would apply to the role. It wouldn't be what I would carry around. So
if you thought it was more about you carrying it around. So she's like, would you be like an animal or some cuter version of you, if that's even possible, is what she said.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I didn't get to go to cartoon college, so I didn't get to explore what that would be like. So I have no idea. Though I would probably be more action superhero oriented. Would be my guess, considering those are my favorite shows.
And I love how she continues with the conversation, tries to make it my fault that she has the option of asking a second question. She goes, seriously, you're forcing me to ask a second question? Okay, fine. I'm like, dude, no.
Yeah. Poor lady.
I know, right? Oh, gee, darn. As a follow-up to the first questions, if I were also a cartoon, in other words, Kaylee was a cartoon, how would she figure into the story? Because it feels like a Tom and Jerry situation with you two.
Yeah, I think it would very much be like a Lois Lane type situation with her. If I had a superhero cartoon guy, she would need saving a lot because she wouldn't listen. Because she would get herself in a situation where I'm like, don't do that. Like Superman is much nicer to Lois than I would be to Kaylee, as far as like, well, I told you a million times. I'm going to fly you out of here, but don't do that. And it would just be Kaylee getting involved in crazy situations because she wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah.
So, but then I would save her.
Yeah. See, now I have this vision of her on a ledge or something, or like hanging, and you're there like giving her a lecture. Like, did we not talk about this? Did we not say this was not?
And her just rolling her eyes.
Yes. And looking at you.
The universe. Yeah.
And saying, I'm hanging here. Hello.
Yeah. That's exactly what it would be like.
I love her questions. Candy asks, what's the best practical joke you've been a part of?
The short version is a friend was flying in and she wanted to surprise her best friend. And so I took her, her friend who was here, who didn't know her best friend was flying in. I took her for a walk and we were randomly going to have them like meet up. You know what I mean? Like that she was just there. And so I remember I pointed, I was like, hey, do you want to go here? And when I pointed, she turned and looked and she literally jumped out of her shoes. That's what I remember from that. She like jumped up and her sandals went flying because she was so excited to see her friends. And that was pretty fun.
Yeah, but that's not a practical joke though.
I mean, I mean, I think that's covered under the umbrella. It's just positive. Like I pretended we were doing this thing, but it wasn't actually the thing that I said. So.
Oh, okay. Good. I like those kind of jokes like that are positive and have a good outcome, because the other ones can get people killed.
Right.
Or put in a timeout for a very long time.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Let's see. What sports would be the funniest to add a mandatory amount of alcohol to?
Oh, what sports would be? I don't know. I think like wiffle ball is pretty good drunk. I feel like we as a species have figured out which games work drunk, except for darts. I don't know why darts are in the bar. But I can't believe that people are like, what's a good game to play in a bar? It's like, well, we'll have these sharp, pointy things that we throw as we get drunker and drunker. It's like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. I think curling would be hilarious drunk. Curling would be the funniest sport drunk for sure.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, now they're not only the darts, but I think now some places that are specific for like axe throwing are inclusive of alcohol, and we're going,
okay.
That's not a good combo.
Yeah.
Let's see. Julia Marisa asks, do you have any siblings? And if so, what have you learned from them?
I have a younger brother, and because he's my younger brother, I have learned nothing from him. I know everything, so the answer is nothing.
Got it. What do you think he's learned from you, being the wise, older, mature brother?
Nothing, because he doesn't listen. So nothing. The answer is nothing both ways.
And that is such a typical sibling answer.
Yeah.
Michelle Bastard had a couple of rapid fire questions for you. And so if you're ready.
Yep.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas, though Halloween's a close second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dressing up is always fun.
Well, I would joke with people. It's like Halloween is a holiday that ages with you, whereas in the beginning it's about candy, physical eating candy, and then later on in later years it's about eye candy. So I've always appreciated the Mean Girls girl Halloween type deal. I was like, I don't think people do anymore, but back when I was young, that's what people would do.
Yeah. Oh, there's still some stuff going on like that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. Favorite sports?
Football, for sure. Football's top. It's not even close.
Favorite type of foods or cuisine, like Italian, Chinese?
Italian, for sure. Though Mexican is also up there.
And last, favorite video game?
I'd say all time, this is probably not an answer that anybody in this audience would know, but Monkey Island. It was a game released in like 1990. And it also helped my brother learn to read, the brother who would not listen. But he learned, because that was before there was speech in games, before there were voice actors voicing stuff. It was just text. So that helped him learn how to read. What
about now? Because I know that you still play games, right?
Yeah, well, I played the Halo series recently. I play once a week with my best friend on Xbox, and now we're playing Grand Theft Auto 5 online, running a criminal empire. Some days I go from being a mafia boss to literally running drugs and armored cars and stuff in Grand Theft Auto. So it's just a whole day of criminal activity.
I know. It's a fascinating ability to just like pretend to do all this stuff, right?
I mean, it's great. Why wouldn't I want to be a super tough biker? Great. Sounds good to me. So that's it's a lot of Xbox now. It's a lot of console stuff because and if something's too complicated, I'm way too old now to figure it out. And my best friend too, he used to be great at video games, but he's a dad too. His kids are a little bit older than mine, not by much, but he stinks now. He's terrible. He's fallen real far.
Oh no.
Yeah, he blows up my helicopter all the time. It's I'll come back, from going to the bathroom, and I'll be like, "You blew up my helicopter again." Yeah. Well, we're dads now, so the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. It's also the same thing. I'm like playing with their siblings video games. I would always remember playing Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat and having to pause it for a second. And then all of a sudden I come back and I'm like, you motherfucker, you killed me.
Yeah. I mean,
it goes, well, you left.
I'm going to say that's more on you. I mean, you should have known better. There was no way that your sibling wasn't going to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I'm like, there's no honor. It's okay. I usually kick their asses anyways in video games, so we were fine.
Nice.
But yeah, no, those video games nowadays are like, whoa, there's a lot more strategic thinking and planning that involves. And I'm like, can I just have Super Mario Brother jumping on mushrooms?
Well, when we played Halo, we bought you could get the 5-game series of all the previous games. It was like $30 or whatever. And we were playing through and we were like shooting the shit or whatever during it. And we reached like game 3 or 4. And I was like, I don't have any idea what the story is. I have no idea why we're doing what we're doing. I have no concept of who this person is. I still don't know. We finished most of the series and I was like, no idea what anyone was doing for whatever reason. But I knew who I needed to shoot. So I guess that was the most important thing.
Yeah. Little stress relief there. For sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Michelle Sutton says, borrowing this question from Kaylee with her permission, do you ever use accents in real life to just entertain yourself or mess with people? Like when you're talking to a customer service person on the phone, do you ever use an Irish accent?
I don't anymore. There was one Halloween party I went to where I spoke in I don't know if I can't remember if it's an Irish or Scottish accent for pretty much the whole time because nobody knew me there. I think it was in Chicago. But then I met a girl that I was kind of interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, shit. Because that's a tough, like, I was like, I'm not going to see these people again. It doesn't matter. And I was like, well, kind of want to see her again. And it's like, but nothing, no, it didn't really come to anything where I didn't have to figure out how to be like, actually, I don't really sound like that. That was a big lie that I was doing. So
always a good conversation piece anyways.
Yeah.
She says she recently heard your voice, a cocky rooster in The Love Interest, and the doggy's dog that ever dogged in Fearless. Do you have any other animal voices in your wheelhouse, either from other books maybe that you've used when telling your children bedtime stories? If so, what would you care to demonstrate? There you go.
I did a series for a company that shall remain nameless. It was like for like internal whatever. And it was Larry the llama. And he was like he was like an employee who wasn't very good, but he thought he was awesome. And he thought he was like the shit. And the way these animal voices happen is like, I'll just take whatever inspiration the writing is, and then I'll figure out later what I was doing. And so for that guy, he was half the Californian sketch from SNL and half Bill Simmons, who's a sports podcaster dude. And so, and I forget who the inspiration for the dog was. And then the inspiration for Goliath, I didn't realize until weeks later what I was channeling. And I told Kaylee this in a text later. And I was like, I figured out why I made Goliath's voice that way. Somewhere in the back of my brain was Antonio Banderas as Puss in Boots, licking himself and then turning around and be like, Shrek. And it's like, for you, baby, I could be. That I realized like that's where that came from. That's why I was doing it that way. So that's a little secret tidbit on what I was chanting, which I didn't know at the time. When I was doing it, I was like, I don't know why he sounds this way, but this is just how I hear him.
Yep. Got it. Now it makes more sense.
Yeah. But we'll see. Somebody will have to write more animal characters, and then we'll have to see what comes out.
Well, there's a couple. I think Pippa Grant sometimes includes animals in her book, but I don't know if they all talk or not. But still,
I see.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. I'm sure there's authors out there that will actually just add that just because they want you to narrate the book now. So, yeah.
All right.
Karen Hoffman says, will we be hearing more of the Jack Irons voice in future series? Wow, that was fun to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody writes a Southern, investigator, FBI, CIA, Jason Bourne type dude, that's up to the author. I'm more than happy to dust off that voice if it makes sense for whoever writes that guy.
Okay. Do you have a ritual or routine that you do before sitting down to record the audio, such as anything like strengthening your vocal cords?
No, hydration's super important. And what I've actually started doing now is trying to build into my day. I found that it's not, some days I wake up and I'm good to go. And some days I wake up and it's just, for whatever reason, the weather changed and stuff's a little more tired. I used to try and force that, which would just make my days long and the sessions long and not go very well. So now I try and work with it a little bit, and I'll do other stuff. And then I'll come back to it in the afternoon or the evening. And so I kind of improv it a little more as far as when I work, as opposed to being rigid in a routine schedule. That's
actually all the questions. We got through all of them.
Great.
From the listeners. I have a few because, me.
Sure.
And I promise they're nice. They're not going to be anything crazy. What do you wish you've had known 10 years ago?
Oh, I wish I had known 10 years ago. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a person who lives with regret. I'm pretty happy with my choices in my life and who's in there. I've had some death in my family, so I suppose spending more time with those people before they left would be really the only thing that I wish I had done.
It's good. The whole living with regret sucks. It's
I just don't do it. There was a person in my life who would harp on the past and be negative. And I told my wife this recently. I was like, the only place you can't go is the past. You live in the present and you go to the future. The past is the only one you can't go back to. So to spend that much time and energy on it is just, you can't go back. So yeah. I just don't see the point.
It's also a matter of just like, okay, acknowledging it, learning from it, figuring out where to go from there, and then moving forward and making sure that you don't either put yourself in that situation again, or you learn from it, or stuff like that, and then just move on. Because otherwise it gets very, very dark and gloomy and you get stuck. And that's not good.
Yep.
Last one. What song do you have to sing along with when you hear it?
Oh, what song? Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge. It's a go-to karaoke song. It's part of it too.
Karaoke is fun. Looking forward to being able to go places and have fun like that again.
Yeah, for sure.
So Connor, before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on, if you can share, and what's coming up next for you?
Again, I never know with books. I am hard at work on that solo book. There will be more. So if you're sick of me, too bad. There's a ton more coming. If you missed out on the Lift for Autism auction, if you didn't win, if you weren't the one person who won, I am doing another auction item, and it's going to be an accent medley. So I will do a piece, like one piece in a bunch of different accents, along with the winner's name in a bunch of different accents. So I will be posting that soon. It's a completely different charity thing.
Cool. Yep, I will make sure to get that information included in the links in the post so people can reference it.
Cool. Great.
And thanks again. That Lift Up for Autism was a phenomenal event that happens. I think it's been going on for a few years now, and it's a great cause. And we thank the narrators that participated. So. Yeah. And thanks to everyone who bid. It's really appreciated. My nephew has autism, so it's a great cause. Thank you so much, Connor, for taking the time and coming back to hang out with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Viv. You were right there, right at the start of all this craziness. So,
it's been fun to watch.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's been fun to do, but man, it is the eye of the storm. It's been crazy. Well,
it ebbs and flows, and you'll get the hang of it, and you'll figure out the schedules a lot better as the years progress. And it gets to the point where it's running so smoothly. You're like, I cannot believe I ever thought this was difficult.
Yeah. Well, right before I reach where it's going to run smoothly, I assume AI will take over all our jobs.
God, no, never. Of course, now they start howling. Do you hear that?
Yes. Well, they're telling you you're done.
No, they're telling me we're by myself. They all left me.
Yeah.
Hold on, give me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. That's Raven that starts. It's like, oh my God, we've been left alone and abandoned. And I'm like, shut it. I'm still here, bro. They're like, oh. And they look at you like, oh, you're here. I'm like, If you're not following Connor on social media, you should. You can find his links in the episode post at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listenings.
A heartfelt thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Jen Franklin, Brittany Cottingham, Leanne Schwartz, Christy Reitz, Chrissy Font, Rhonda Pezzarello, Evelyn Clarici, Michelle DaCosta, Michelle Bestard, Farah Blair, Candice Platel, Carol Liebner, Bethany Crane, Jennifer Mirabelli, Kaylee Loring, Victoria Butler, Rula Hart, Carrie Wallace, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Dawn Darsh, Valerie Wall, Sarah McQueen, Lynna Black Pedersen, Nixley Zenner, and Nancy Billows. The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive early access to podcast episodes, exclusive content with our guests, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.